In 2018, Tyson Fury had the opportunity to sign a mega money 3-fight deal with Eddie Hearn, matching him first with Tony Bellew and Dillian Whyte and culminating in a blockbuster showdown with Anthony Joshua. The Gypsy King, having not fought in 3 years, turned down the opportunity, signing instead with Frank Warren, who matched him first with miscellaneous Albanian cruiserweight Sefer Safiri, followed by Italian journeyman Francesco Pianetta. To allay the concerns of a skeptical public over the quality of Fury's opposition, Tyson's father John assured fans that Safiri, who's never fought at world level before or since, was actually a better opponent than the one being offered by Eddie Hearn, former WBC World Cruiserweight Champion Tony Bellew. Fury would stop Safiri in 4 rounds, in what played out more like an exhibition than a serious contest, before defeating Pianetta by unanimous decision 2 months later. He then went on to face WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder. Wilder, whose highest purse to that point had been $3 million against Luis Ortiz, turned down an offer of $15 million for an undisputed match with Anthony Joshua that same year. Rather than give fans the first undisputed heavyweight champion since Lennox Lewis, Wilder instead opted for a voluntary defense against the beltless Fury. After their fight, which ended in a draw, Wilder would continue to shun the prospect of an undisputed match with Joshua and instead push for an immediate rematch with the Gypsy King. Despite initially agreeing to the bout, Fury would soon go back on his word and instead sign a multi-fight deal with Top Rank and ESPN, who first matched him with Tom Schwartz. Wilder was approached once again about the Joshua fight, this time by broadcaster DAZN, who offered him over $100 million for a 3-fight deal. The first being a mandatory defense against Dominic Breazeale, a fight he had to take whether he accepted the deal or not, and the second being the undisputed fight with AJ, with the loser having the option of an immediate rematch. Incredibly, the Bronze Bomber would turn down the offer despite it being worth several times his highest purse. At this point, the objective of the teams behind Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury became clear. Having no interest in allowing either fighter to face Anthony Joshua, they would instead launch a propaganda campaign designed to discredit AJ and all of his opponents, thus rendering any undisputed fight obsolete in the mind of the public. We were repeatedly told that Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury were the 2 best heavyweights in the world, and that unified champion Anthony Joshua was essentially irrelevant. This notion was largely predicated on hyping up former Wilder victim Luis Ortiz, the only opponent with a pulse that Al Haymon had allowed Deontay to face as champion. Ortiz was being sold as far superior to any opposition Anthony Joshua had faced. However, on closer inspection, Ortiz, who was just 4 weeks shy of his 39th birthday, had a paper-thin resume. He never medaled at any major international tournaments in the amateurs, and his best win as a pro was over Bryant Jennings 3 years earlier. Compare that to 2 Joshua opponents of a similar age. Vladimir Klitschko, Olympic gold medalist, 2-time world heavyweight champion with 28 world title fights under his belt, spent over a decade at the top, and Alexander Povetkin, also an Olympic gold medalist and former WBA champion, whose only pro defeat at the time was to Klitschko. No informed person, minus a crystal meth habit, could possibly construe Luis Ortiz as being superior to these 2 fighters based on resume. Furthermore, Wilder had actually avoided a fight with Klitschko back in 2015, which was the first of several opportunities he had for an undisputed unification clash. After turning down the AJ fight in 2019, Wilder would defeat his mandatory challenger Dominic Breazeale by knockout. Having only 1 championship belt, Wilder was seldom obligated to fight mandatories, leaving him free to pick his opposition. And Tyson Fury, of course, had no belts at all, and therefore no obligations at all. He had the freedom to pick literally anyone, and that's exactly what he did. He sold his matchup against German no-hoper Tom Schwartz as a defense of the fictitious lineal title, a marketing gimmick previously used by Michael Spinks and George Foreman in the 80s and 90s respectively. Fury would clobber the overmatched Schwartz in 2 rounds before facing Swedish southpaw Otto Wallin 3 months later. In the midst of all this, Anthony Joshua had suffered his first pro defeat, being beaten from pillar to post by flabby Mexican Andy Ruiz in his 7th title defense. This, of course, bolstered Wilder and Fury's propaganda campaign against them and meant that their rematch in February of 2020 was seen by many as a de facto undisputed fight. However, the reality is, There is no substitute for Undisputed, because the more belts you have, the more often you're forced to face the best opposition in your division. Long-reigning, multi-belt holding champions of the past, such as Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, and Lennox Lewis, all suffered upset defeats at the hands of betting underdogs. In an attempt to avoid the same fate, some champions quickly vacate extra titles after winning them or actively avoid unifications altogether. This leaves them free to pick and choose the fights that best suit them based on money and the style of the opponent. But in order to obfuscate what they're doing from the public, they have to constantly discredit the other champions and convince people that they're irrelevant. This is what Deontay Wilder did during his 5-year reign as WBC World Heavyweight Champion. And as for Tyson Fury, he just priced himself out of an undisputed showdown with Alexander Usyk. Does he feel Undisputed is a poison chalice as well? Perhaps he's injured. Or maybe he sees Usyk as a stylistic nightmare for him and wants to see some deterioration in Usyk first before he fights him. Fury has previously admitted that the hardest fight of his career was against Steve Cunningham, a small, mobile cruiserweight who Fury described as being as slippery as an eel. Is he concerned that the southpaw Usyk will be even more slippery? Predictably, both Tyson and his dad John have attempted to discredit Usyk over the past year, claiming that the former undisputed cruiserweight and current unified heavyweight champion is actually inferior to Steve Cunningham. Why do you think that is? The answer is obvious. If you're not going to fight him, then you have to discredit him. That's the game. They say that the game is to be sold and not told. But what can I say? There's no code of silence in boxing. So I'm telling. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there. Oh yeah, we out here. We out here, bro. Don't get swept off your feet.